Space will decide who leads the 21st century, not wars, not elections, space. While you're watching this, thousands of satellites are orbiting above your head. They guide your phone, your food supply, your economy, your military, and now Donald Trump wants to reset the rules. His new space policy promises American dominance, fast timelines, big power, total control. It sounds strong. It sounds inevitable. It sounds comforting. But here's the uncomfortable truth. In space, dominance is not declared. It is engineered and enforced by systems others agree to live under. Right now, space is no longer exploration. It is infrastructure, and infrastructure, once politicized, becomes fragile. This policy reaches for the moon, literally, but it may be pulling away the foundations that made US leadership possible in the first place. If you want to understand how power really works, not in slogans, but in systems, stay with me. Because before we ask whether this plan will succeed, we must ask a more basic question. What problem is America actually trying to solve? America's new space policy is built around a single assumption, that leadership equals dominance, and dominance equals security. That assumption feels intuitive, but it hides the real tension. The United States depends on space more than any other country. Navigation, intelligence, communications, finance, agriculture, missiles, markets. Space is no longer a frontier. It is a backbone. At the same time, America is no longer alone up there. China is closing the gap. Dozens of countries are launching satellites. Commercial actors are multiplying faster than governments can regulate them. So this is not a race between flags. It is a race between systems. Trump's policy tries to answer this moment with speed and power, tight deadlines, centralized control, heavy reliance on the private sector, and a clear message to rivals. But it downplays something less dramatic: rules, norms, coordination. That omission matters, because in a shared domain like space, leadership is not just about what you can do. It is about what others accept. And that brings us to how America arrived here in the first place. To understand this moment, you have to look backward. Not years, decades. Space was never built for dominance alone. It was built for stability. After the Cold War, the United States helped shape space as a predictable environment. Rules mattered, treaties mattered, coordination mattered, satellites multiplied quietly, GPS became universal. Commerce, science, and security fused into one system. And the more successful America became, the more dependent it grew. That dependency changed the stakes. China watched carefully. It invested patiently, launch by launch, system by system. Soon, space stopped being empty. It became crowded, competitive, fragile. At the same time, commercial actors entered fast. Private capital, private launches, private timelines. Governments no longer controlled everything above the atmosphere. Markets did. This is the backdrop Trump's policy emerges from: a world where speed matters, but restraint matters too. Where the biggest risk is not falling behind, it is mismanaging success. And that tension sets the stage for the first real stress test. The first stress point arrives quietly, but it carries enormous weight. The policy sets hard deadlines. Return to the moon by 2028, permanent presence by 2030. On paper, this looks decisive. In reality, it compresses risk. Space programs do not fail loudly at first. They fail in budgets, in coordination, in trade-offs no one wants to admit. To move fast, the policy leans heavily on nuclear power in space, on rapid missile defense concepts, on prototypes, not norms. It also dismantles older structures, councils, processes, channels built to slow mistakes. Speed becomes the virtue, caution becomes the cost, and here is the paradox. The more America accelerates alone, the more others adjust around it. Allies hesitate, competitors mirror, rules fall behind reality. If you're finding this analysis useful, pause for a moment. This is not about politics. It's about how complex systems break. Because once the first guardrails disappear, the real danger is no longer technical failure. It is strategic miscalculation. And that leads us to what's really driving this system underneath the surface. Beneath the bold language, there is a quieter mechanism at work, and it explains almost everything. This policy is not just about exploration. It is about control of bottlenecks. Who launches faster? Who builds cheaper? Who replaces public systems with private ones? By elevating commercial actors, the government shifts risk outward. Markets move faster than agencies, but they do not think in decades. They think in returns. The Commerce Department gains influence. Acquisition accelerates. Public oversight thins. In theory, this unleashes innovation. In practice, it fragments responsibility. When something goes wrong in space, there is no reset button, no recall, no safe failure. Yet the policy barely mentions traffic management, debris, congestion, shared safety standards. Those are not glamorous. They do not dominate headlines, but they determine whether space remains usable at all. This is the hidden trade-off. By prioritizing dominance and speed, the system deprioritizes stewardship. And in a domain everyone depends on, that imbalance compounds quietly until it doesn't. Because when systems ignore their own externalities, they create the conditions for the next rupture. And that rupture is already forming. The second rupture doesn't come from rockets. It comes from silence. The policy barely acknowledges the international system that already exists. Treaties, technical forums, shared safety processes. For decades, those mechanisms kept space orderly, imperfect, slow, but functional. Now, America steps back. At the United Nations, technical experts meet every year. They debate debris, collision warnings, sustainability, practical rules that prevent accidents from becoming crises. This time, the United States contributes ideas, then rejects the outcome. The resolution passes anyway, by an overwhelming margin, with America standing alone. That matters more than it seems. Because leadership in space is not enforced by force, it is enforced by alignment. When the leading power opts out, others fill the gap. Norms form without it. Standards harden elsewhere. China does not need to outpace America overnight. It only needs to be present, consistent, willing to cooperate where the US withdraws. This is how influence shifts, quietly, procedurally, irreversibly. And while policy focuses on hardware and speed, the rules of conduct begin drifting out of American hands, which raises the most human question of all. For you, the consequences are immediate and personal. The satellites guiding your phone, the systems controlling global shipping, the networks predicting weather and crops, they all depend on stability above. When leadership is fragmented, when rules are ignored, all of that becomes fragile. Your GPS could be disrupted, supply chains delayed, financial transactions slowed, even national security compromised. Commercial actors may race ahead, governments may scramble, but everyday life yours, mine feels the tremors first. And that is the hidden risk of Trump's space policy. It aims for glory and dominance, but it may leave Americans exposed. If you've ever taken for granted that space works, that it just functions, this is the moment to reconsider. Because dominance without cooperation is not strength, it is vulnerability. And that fragility is about to ripple far beyond American borders. Think about the systems you rely on every day. They are more delicate and more political than you ever imagined. Next, we'll look at how this fragility echoes across the globe. Globally, the stakes are enormous. Space is no longer American. It belongs to everyone. When US policy prioritizes speed over cooperation, allies pause, partners hedge, adversaries exploit. China, Europe, India, Russia, they watch. They calculate, they launch. The Artemis Accords offer a framework, but only for a subset of like-minded nations. The rest follow their own rules. Debris management, orbital traffic, commercial rights, military signaling. Each action has a chain reaction. A satellite collision here can delay research there. A launch misstep can stall commerce halfway around the world. Diplomatic misalignment can escalate quietly, not with missiles, but with sanctions, regulations, and distrust. America's unilateral push may ignite a global ripple, competition, confusion, and contested norms. And while the world adjusts, America must still face a question every leader fears. What comes next if the system fractures completely? Looking ahead, there are three possible futures for US space policy. The first is optimistic. The policy succeeds, commercial actors thrive, allies align, rules emerge organically. The moon is revisited, Mars exploration takes its first steps. US leadership remains intact, adaptive, and respected. The second is moderate, timelines slip, budgets strain, commercial efforts grow, but gaps remain. Some allies cooperate, others hesitate. China and competitors expand their influence. America retains leadership, but it is contested, costly, and precarious. The third is pessimistic. Rules collapse, traffic jams and debris rise, accidents disrupt systems critical to daily life. Allies drift away, competitors exploit gaps. US dominance erodes, leaving a fractured, dangerous, and unpredictable space domain. The lesson is systemic. Power without cooperation is brittle. Ambition without architecture is fragile. Dominance without rules is temporary. Bridge to final insight. How the US navigates this moment will define not only space policy, but the very architecture of global power for decades to come. Stay with me as we explore what this means for the next generation of leaders and for you. Finally, the insight is clear. American space policy is at a crossroads. Ambition is high, deadlines are tight. Private investment is pouring in, but rules, cooperation, and long-term strategy lag behind. The choice is stark. Follow a path of dominance without alignment, fast, flashy, fragile, or embrace leadership with stewardship slower, disciplined, sustainable. Your daily life depends on it. Global security depends on it. The credibility of US leadership depends on it. This is more than rockets and satellites. It is a test of how power is exercised in the 21st century, not just in space, but on Earth. So the question remains, will America lead responsibly, or will ambition outpace wisdom? If you want to understand the future of power, economics, and technology, subscribe, share this video, and stay informed. The decisions made in orbit today will shape life on Earth tomorrow. Bridge to next topic, video. And in our next video, we'll explore how China is positioning itself to take advantage of these very cracks and what that means for the US globally.